Jamila, we are live.
Hi, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this lovely Friday afternoon here in South Africa. Our guest speaker for today is Jeff Williamson. Welcome, Jeff. If you could just share with us and the audience as to where you are, what time of the day it is, and how you're doing.
Hey, thanks for having me. I hope everyone's well. I am in South Carolina in the United States. It is 8:30 in the morning right now, but just happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much, and especially during the holidays to give us your time, your early morning, I suppose, and to be here with us and to share your story with us. We really, really do appreciate that. And I just want to wish everyone a belated Happy Christmas and hope that the festive season is safe and enjoyable and prosperous for everyone. It's a beautiful time of the year. Always have fond memories of this, even though I don't celebrate. How was your Christmas, Jeff?
It was very good. I had my in-laws came to the house. We're empty nesters, so both of our kids are a little bit older, 24 and 21, but they both came back with their significant others. So it was just a good time. Everybody ate well, probably too well. But it was just nice to have everybody in the house.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a full house, and it takes me back to my childhood. We always had a full house, having people come over and stay over during the festive period. It was always a time of giving and love and sharing. So I have very beautiful memories, but like you, I'm also, well, my son is still living with me, but he's 26, and over this festive period, he's just been on holiday to Cape Town. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cape Town or if you've traveled to South Africa before.
No, I've not, but I have heard of Cape Town. I heard, so many good things about South Africa. It's such a beautiful area.
It absolutely is. It's a stunning country. And I think that a lot of us as South Africans take it for granted until we travel overseas and we realize the beauty that we have within this lovely, diverse country that, that we live in, that we get to live in. So, as I said, I'm also over the weekend, the past couple of weeks, been having an empty nest with my son off on holiday with his friends. And it does take some getting used to, because you spend your entire life just, focused on these kids, bringing them up. And then now when they have their own life, it takes an adjustment. But it also gives you an opportunity to prioritize yourself again. And to find out who you are as a person and not with just the label of parent.
That's right. Yeah, we found that.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess it would have been 2 years ago now that we've been official empty nesters. And that's when, like you say, my wife and I just kind of got to know who we were as a couple again. Not that we drifted or anything like that, but kids will take priority in a lot of areas. But my wife and I have really kind of dug in and found cool ways that we could really and we, like I said, we made a lot of effort while the kids were here. But now we're doing some fun like cooking classes. We'll have a lot of groups that we're together, that we do some study work together. So we stay very, very busy. My wife works out quite a bit. I even got to start writing books, with some of that free time. So it's when you get that gift of time, it's awesome to see what can kind of come from it.
No, absolutely, and it's wonderful. And I know that life happens in between, and you prioritize the kids. And even though there's not necessarily a break in connection, but you do get busy with just managing life.
That's right.
And it's great. It's great that, couples get to get to this stage where they actually still know their spouses, because over the time of bringing the kids up and working and just managing life, you do tend to disconnect, and you do tend to move in different directions. And when that connection is not there, it's not possible for you to understand and observe the growth of your spouse.
That's right.
So I know I've found a lot of people who have actually gotten to this point where they become the empty nesters and look at your spouse and you don't know who that person is.
Yeah. Yeah. So my wife and I, we actually met in high school. She was 14 and I was 16. And this past October, we've been together for 32 years, married for 26 of those years. And we made it thank you. We made it a priority, though, that while we knew there were going to be challenging times ahead, we knew that, hey, we've been blessed to have each other in one another's lives. And we wanted to make that a priority. And we would, have sometimes the tougher conversations and do some of the things that were going to be tougher to know that we were kind of plowing ahead for what would be after the kids, where we're out of the house. And we wanted to be defined as being great parents, but we also wanted to be defined as a couple that loved each other well. So here now I'm 48 and my wife's 46, that we are able to just have a great time and do silly things still. So just being intentional with dating one another still while the kids were there, and just making her the priority as much as you can when there were kids screaming and hollering around. But thankful for the result in where we're at today because of that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I find that with our culture, I'm Muslim and Anissa is as well. And what happens here is that, like when I was married, I lived with my in-laws. And the expectation for you as a woman, as a wife and a mother, was to prioritize your husband, your child, your in-laws, and then last was you. So there were some difficulties with that, because it doesn't make, or it doesn't allow for a fertile ground for you to put those priorities in place, to make sure that you are number one to your spouse, and everything else comes in. And as a result, if you ask for something like that, it's often misconstrued as you being selfish. And of course, this isn't, it isn't a general experience for all South Africans or all Muslim people, but a large part of the community does frown upon you wanting to prioritize yourself, especially as a woman. But what's great to observe is that over the years, this has changed, and women have now found their place. They found their voices, to ask for what it is that they want. So that for me is like huge progress for me, to see young girls who are happy to own their spaces and their roles.
Yeah, and I found, and this is taking sometimes a long time too, because just kind of going through life and all the just the chaos of things, I also realized too that as I prioritize my wife and as I try to, love on her well, I'm actually doing it for myself too, because it allows for just a more happy house. A lot, if I'm not being so self-centric about what needs to happen for just myself, and I think more I guess from the 20,000 foot view of the house or whatever we're doing at that point in time, I'm really actually gaining in that experience too. So it's not to say happy wife, happy life kind of thing. I know that's one of the sayings as it goes, but I learned that when I try to love well with Kendra, my spouse, just how much greater things are even selfishly for myself. So
Yeah, and amazing. That's amazing how we learn as we go along as
Oh yeah.
individuals, and that journey never ever ends, does it? There's only so much more that you need to learn and want to learn. And I've certainly found that in my experience. So, Jeff, I haven't had a chance to properly introduce you to the audience, so I'm just going to read your bio.
Sure.
Or if you would like to read it, that's also fine.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So let me just read the bio. Jeff Williamson, with 25 years of experience in finance, education, leadership, and coaching, is the owner operator of Coastal Leadership Coaching. He draws on his diverse background to help individuals and organizations reach their full potential. Jeff has authored 2 books, and I love the title of this book, Still Marinating,
Yes.
Turning Your Journey into Your Legacy. And the other one is called The Other Side of the Coin, on leadership and personal development. Jeff holds a bachelor's in business marketing from the University of Michigan, along with advanced certifications from UNC Chapel Hill, Harvard Business School, and the South Carolina Bankers Association. He is also a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, and a multipliers coach with the Wiseman Group. Beyond his professional achievements, Jeff is deeply committed to his family, philanthropy, and church activities, driven by a passion for helping others realize their best selves. So if you're interested in learning more about Jeff's coastal leadership or himself, we're going to be putting some links on in the comments, and you can click on those in your own time. So Jeff, talk to us about this migration from finance and banking and education to where you are today.
Yeah. So I've always had some sort of a leadership role, even with my first job at McDonald's, when I was helping people cook fries more efficiently and helping customers be served a bit, with a more of a culture experience. And yes, my vocation is in finance, and but I've learned that the more I help out and coach and teach and try to lead the team, and I pull myself away as manager, but kind of more inflect myself as a leader, the better I've seen not just the results of whatever they were trying to accomplish, but that's really when culture happens, and that's when people start to level up, and they start to see potentials in themselves and things that they might not have been able to see before. And frankly, I really enjoyed this, even a little bit selfishly, like I like being part of those experiences and seeing somebody level up. It's just exciting for me. So I was like, I'm going to try to move ahead and try to learn more about this, so I can just really have that be a bit more of a solid ripple effect as we go forward. So just felt blessed in that area. Felt that I've been there's certain gifts and talents that I've had certain abilities in, and with that, I just wanted to continue to, I guess, pay it forward, as it were, to try to allow other people to break down some of those obstacles and walls.
Wow, that's amazing. And tell us a little bit about being a multipliers coach. You can go into a little bit of detail on that.
Yeah. So there's two different certifications that I have with John Maxwell. He's a well-known speaker, coach, trainer himself, author of several books. Liz Wiseman as a multipliers coach. It takes the book, The Multipliers, and it really kind of allows us to understand, how we can, there's so many different ways that we can, coach and lead and love on people. And it's to recognize what that strength zone is. But there's also within that same book the idea of accidentally diminishing people too. So it's to recognizing our skills and our gifts, but also to recognize that we don't maybe overdo it in cases, and just to see like a self-awareness approach to how we can lead well culturally, and just from our home as well.
Wow, amazing. Not sure if Anissa wants to. Oh dear, looks like Anissa's Anissa's audio is completely off. You on mute.
Okay, I'm on mute.
Okay, I don't think that, well, the gremlins have definitely gotten a hold of her, but I think we'll just continue along. And tell me, Jeff, how have you found, what was your experience like with the whole COVID pandemic, and how did people relate to you at that particular time, going through, the stresses and the challenges that most of us had experienced at that time? What was your experience also?
Yeah, so COVID was actually a pretty, I guess, monumental time for us in our life. My wife had it. She had it pretty bad. Actually, she almost passed away from it. And just in that time, she was in the hospital for a week and a half, and thankfully she got back and everything was fine overall. But it really caused me to think, hey, we're not invincible, and that if we have, if you think with the end in mind, and you think from a legacy standpoint, if I start to think about, hey, if I want to be known as a person that does these things, there's going to be things that come up, like my wife, who almost, like I said, had passed, that I might need to try to change and make, I guess, different moves, so I could, move ahead in certain areas. And frankly, that's where my first book, Still Marinating, came from. It's the idea that, I like to grill quite a bit also. And I find that the longer that we grill, the better typically the product can be, versus throwing it in the microwave and just get some kind of gross rendition of what it would be. But COVID really caused me to have the awareness that if I want to move ahead in this area or that area, I need to act. If I want to just, have a dream and just kind of think about it, I can just sit on the couch, but that doesn't really do too many people much. So where life happens and you see positive momentum, it's when someone actually has those ideas and those dreams, but they actually start to apply them. Even though there's going to be failures along the way and mistakes and all sorts of things here, at least we're trying to better ourselves, better our family and friends and society, imperfectly. But COVID was really a wake-up call for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as it was for me as well. And I think it was also just on a social level or a community consciousness level. I thought, I felt that we were battling there, as humanity. We were so caught up in this worldly life of ours. I found that, there was no time for family, no time for friends. All you were focused on is work, and just making that extra rand or dollar or whatever it is, and suddenly COVID came along and you literally just stopped dead in your tracks, and you're forced to look within. You're forced to change your lifestyle, change the way that you thought, change your perception of what is important in life. So it was definitely a turning point for me. And I remember, I was grateful and thankful, actually. I lost a lot of people during COVID. It was a difficult time for me. And obviously that brings a lot of sadness with it. But in terms of that broader perspective, I constantly go back to that as an anchor to make sure that my life since COVID is one of purpose, is one of making sure that I'm using every moment productively and positively. And it changes, it extends and ripples, like you say, into the way that you you think. It extends in the words that you express and the things that you declare. You just become, for me, I found that I've become a lot more conscious and grateful as well. And not just for the wonderful things and the gifts and, the positives in life, but also grateful for the challenges that have come, continue to come, because it's an opportunity for us to learn from it. So a lot of us see these challenges as something that's, why me? It's always me. I'm cursed in this respect. Why do I always have this negativity? But if we reframe our thoughts on it and our mindset about it, I think that you get a different, more positive outcome from it. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because this is something that you I think you believe in. Empowering growth through transformation, and not looking at challenges from a negative perspective, but as something that can propel us forward into achieving the successes that we want in our lives.
Yeah, and actually, it's a good setup that for my second book, The Other Side of the Coin. Far too often, challenges or the storm that we see, and I'll just be very clear: storms are awful. I mean, what storms in our life, we just get it. No one likes storms, and any leadership coach, it's about a mindset approach. But let me just be honest, leadership coaches don't like storms either, so let me be very candid. But I came across some books here, and I started to have a bit of a mindset shift. Shola Richards, he, fantastic author. He wrote about a couple of life experiences, and his dad taught him to be the buffalo. And I'm like, so I read a bit more about that, and I'm like, that's very intriguing. So, and just the concept of that is a buffalo will run through the storm. Why? Because they don't want to stay in it very long. So they know, hey, this is not going to be great, but I am going to go and go through it so I can get out of it as quickly as I possibly can. Where people like myself still to this day sometimes can run the other way. And sometimes, yes, you will dodge that storm. But a lot of times you will run and the storm's still coming and still coming. And you're like, good gracious. So I've learned in my life, it's just, while it's not easy, it is so good when I do, in fact, charge that storm and try to not get it over with. But, we're going to, as we charge storms, we're going into areas that we don't have a lot of experience with, or don't recognize potentially what's happening. But in that, we're growing, we're learning. John Maxwell calls that the law of the lid. As we lift our lid, we're learning more, and we're able to be able to help and teach and coach and lead society and our friends and family that much better. It's that ripple effect. I can only give with what I have. But if I'm always running from storms, if I'm always running from things that are uneasy and not comfortable, my learning is kind of stopped. And that's all I'm going to be able to, offer my friends and family.
Absolutely. And I find in my experience that the storms that we experience are actually also a huge part of that experience comes from the fact that we don't know ourselves. And learning about ourselves and knowing who we are and taking responsibility for that and accountability for that helps us to move through the storms with a bit more speed, I would say, and a few more tools within our in our basket. How do you find, like with your clients that have come on board or come to you, what types of tools do you use or suggest that they use in order to get to know who they are? And I'm asking you this because it's like we tend to want to look at only the good within ourselves.
Yeah.
And I found that you've got to acknowledge who you are holistically. And that's every part of you, the lovely, wonderful side of you, but also your shadow self too. And it's important for you to be aware of that. And only once you're aware of that, are you able to go through those storms with the least amount of judgment for yourself, with the most amount of vulnerability for yourself, to be able to get through it. So tell us a little bit about that and what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, Stephen Covey wrote a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Individuals or Highly Effective People. And with that, the first 3 chapters and segments are learning about ourselves. Because if we don't understand ourselves, we can't help other people well. So in that, and other books that I've read and podcasts I've been part of, I've learned that, hey, I need to reflect. I need to understand, what makes me tick, what makes me, why I think this way, I type my thoughts. I just put it down in the paper. And I find that, a lot of inspiration and innovation, a lot of galvanization comes from just writing down what I'm thinking, which is why I love writing it. Maybe that's where the books kind of got inspired. But with people I work with and some of the clients I have, it's so important for us to reflect and just to stop and to yield on what's going on. If we don't yield, if we don't take that pause, we're going to continue doing the same thing. And we know that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. But if we stop and take, okay, well, I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to take the scenic route. I'm going to go a different way that I have not gone before. And I'm going to see how that goes. Because a lot of times, and what I do is I just cause people to think maybe a little bit differently. I challenge their processes. I challenge just their own mindset, things that they always have done, and say, well, have you thought about this? A lot of my friends and family and team, they get frustrated because I answer their questions with more questions. But it's so important to just always be in an engaged conversation and always be thinking and always be wondering what else is out there in terms of opportunity. Yeah. Because if we just sit there and just do what we always do, then that turns, potentially stale. And I don't want to be passed on by. I don't want to have regret. We're going to have some form of regret here and there, but I don't want to have, this intentional regret that enters in for myself or for my clients.
Let's see if you can hear me now. I've gone for another backup phone, and I can hear you clearly.
Excellent. Yay. Hey.
So I think it's pretty apt. Well, I first want to say hi to you, Jeffrey, properly. I've been listening in intently to the conversation, and this is my personal favorite topic around the hero's journey, and going and accepting that quest and just facing that storms head on, as you spoke about the examples earlier. So I just want to start there and say, if we do not embrace these difficult storms and the dark night of the soul experience, as you will know, it's not necessarily going to get us onto the other side with better insights and, enhanced awareness and a higher level of consciousness, etc. So I'm not going to yet ask a question. I'm now finally just carving myself off to all my gremlins. And isn't this how apt life is, right? We have to go through these gremlins, slay those dragons. And this is how life just throws these curveballs at us. And it's how we stay centered and composed in it. And I have been trying to do 3 different devices now to get to this point. So as you said, it takes a different route. And it doesn't mean that it's the wrong route. And even if it's a roadblock or a barrier or an obstacle, maybe it's a redirection, as we are now experiencing in this moment.
But I mean, just let's take this example. How profound is this actually? Where here we are, you're trying to go all these different ways. What normally works for you didn't work this one time. And you kept trying, where other people, so we can say, here's a great example, would say, you know what, I'm quitting. Maybe not entirely. Maybe I'll just quit for this one episode. And, so we have people that can take care of it. It's gonna be fine. But I found that if I keep pushing ahead, if I keep taking my shots won't always go in, but if I keep taking that shot, you know, how much better I'm going to be, so then I can lead that much better. And it just, you're building just your story, which is going to be able to speak into other people's lives also. So glad you're here today.
Thank you. What I'm hearing you say is that radical resilience.
Oh yeah.
That one has to overcome and be an overcomer. And both of you spoke about not being a victim of your circumstances, but how does it shape the direction your life takes on instead?
That's right. Yeah, that's so good. I mean, if we weren't resilient, then we would just, you know, do the same things we did as teenagers, you know, and we would have the same friends and, you know, eat the same meals and probably live in our, you know, in my parents' house. And so you got to push ahead.
Agree. I think for me, the ultimate goal, and I won't say goal, I hate the word goal. I don't even know why I used it, but the purpose, the mission, the cause, you know, is about self-leadership, is getting to that point of self-actualization, but not from a point of not failing. Because if it wasn't for the failure, we wouldn't reap the beautiful lessons that comes from that perceived failure, right? Or just, you know, going into battle. It takes that, you know, enhances your life experiences and brings you down, right down to earth, and allows you to be more courageous and almost leave an invitation for others to say, I'll step into the fire. I'm happy to step into that fire.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Anissa, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. That's amazing. I'm so happy.
That's the one thing I am complimented on, is that I have radical resilience, and I'm not. Anyway, back over to you.
No, you know, this is the thing that I find so amazing, and I'm so grateful for this podcast, because it gives us an opportunity to share our stories and to share everything, you know, our strengths, our weaknesses. And like Anissa has just mentioned, for others to take note of the ability that we have as human beings to keep on trying. The more you get knocked down, you get up and you try again and again and again. And this is what I love. And you mentioned something about, you know, what you do and how you challenge your clients, and that is to ask a lot of questions.
That's right.
And to delve and to probe. And sometimes, and I know when people have done this to me in the past, it's been very disconcerting. I feel very uncomfortable. But having gone through the processes and doing the work, I'm at a point now where I appreciate that. Because in having all of these questions asked to you, you are gaining so much of insight, so much knowledge, so much curiosity of what more there is out there.
That's right.
And this is something that I feel most of us should try and stay away from, is that like embrace the uncomfortableness of being challenged. Because it's not to put you in a spot, it's not to make you seem less than at all, but there for you to push yourself and to grow outside of the bounds that you might feel within your mindset. How have you felt? What has your experience been with your clients who maybe have had similar experience to what I'm saying to you now? And tell us maybe, or share with us one of their stories, perhaps, of how they've grown along the journey from where they started to where they may be now.
Yeah, I mean, I have one in particular that I can think about that, you know, as a coach, and frankly, even, you know, taking a step back, just people that are helping other people grow. You don't have to be a coach specifically to have that happen. But we're to hold each other accountable, but we do that through relationship. You can't speak into somebody's life if the relationship and the prep work isn't there. So if I just start going into a conversation saying everybody should do these things here and go and thanks, and that's what a manager does. That's somebody that's just gonna, iron fist, and I've done that, y'all. I've went into situations that have been, I've embarrassed myself. I remember one conversation I had, and I wrote about it, where I called my dad up afterwards and, hey, Dad, I took the reins and I made all these changes, and isn't that great? He goes, well, you made everybody, frustrated and angry, and they're working because you told them to, they're not working for you. So all that being said, some conversations that I have had where I continue to ask questions, it's because relationships have been established. And one gentleman in particular, just was and he's enjoyed the second book because he's never thought of things that way before. It's taking, and that's the other side of the coin, where you think about a different way. You go into the opportunity of challenge, and you kind of embrace that. But through his life, he understood things to be very black and white, very just this is the way it is. We don't challenge things. We don't move ahead from any other thought process. And through kind of a slow process, sometimes it takes a while, but still marinating.
Jeff, I want to ask you, I may have missed this, so forgive me if I... Can you hear me? Is the gremlins back?
No, I can hear
you.
Okay. So forgive me if Jamila has already covered this, because we don't rehearse this, and I don't know what she may or may not have asked. But I'm wanting to, in our last 15 minutes, I'm very intrigued to know, what was your hero's journey? What led you to this path? What in particular was the darkest night of the soul experience? Was it the loss, potential loss of your, I shouldn't say potential, but the nearly loss of your wife during COVID? Or what was it that was the catalyst for you to say, my purpose and my cause and my mission is different? Are you willing to share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And great question. So I've had several heroes in my life. Jim Collins talks about them as level 5 leaders, people that are leaders of leaders, and they don't even think of themselves as such, but people that just emulate this level of coaching and trying to really have those conversations and just the open-ended opportunities that exist. And I've been blessed to have 3 fantastic work mentors in my life. But even further, my parents have been incredible, where they have really helped jettison where I am today. And but yeah, and I did talk about my wife, kind of like that moment in time where I made that paradigm shift. But I can say, when I was probably even at my darkest moment, was even a couple years earlier than that, when I was very, very high in the corporate ladder. I was doing quite well with this one company. I'll leave the company out. But I was being so self-centric. I was chasing the business card. I was chasing the prestige. I was chasing just all of the accolades that went with that. I was easily one of the youngest, not supervisors, like executives that they had within the company. And just like that, things changed. We had a difference in culture that came in. Other people were part of the team, and all of the things that I put my stock into, and all of my thoughts and all the things were just in a dying effort. And I was so low in that point, because I was probably one of the best managers that the company has seen. I was probably one of the best managers that like people just understood me as being this strong manager. And I will look back, and I made some differences, you know, in people's lives, and that was great. But I realized, you know, it was so like self-serving, and I was missing out so much here. And like I mentioned, the level 5 leaders, my parents, a lot of the coaching that I've received, I want to pay things forward. I just made this paradigm shift where I thought, hey, I'm going to start leading now. You know, and the best leaders are the ones that lead from the back, and they're the ones that coach, inspire, influence, and train. You know, to see them develop themselves. You know, and it just, I became as people centric as I could be. To where it's why I get up every morning now. It's how can I make a difference in one person's life? I even have that, and when I had to shut that reminder off on my phone just then, that's what that was. It's like, hey, who can I make a difference in which person's life that day? And you know, the reminder on my phone, it's more of a just alarm I need to shut off now, but it's still making sure that I'm staying sharp to what my purpose in fact is.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is that the prestige, the status, the destination happiness kind of meant absolutely nothing when you lost the culture, the norm, the ordinary world that you were living in, where you were supposedly thriving. And when that shifted, you had to reevaluate on what really matters. So it was, if I may say, or may ask, was it moving out of that egoic state into a more empathetic, compassionate,
absolutely,
unconditional love, acceptance, no judgment for others? But it takes those experiences to actually bring us back to that. And I was having a chat with a gentleman today where he asked me quite a profound question, and I think I'm going to ask it to you as well. He said, so if somebody has harmed us, be it a family member, a colleague, anyone in our lives, we say we forgive and there's reconciliation. But when that person says, I will choose, I no longer want to be around you, how do you respond in that moment?
Well, I'm of the belief that you're to forgive 70 times 7, that we're to have a posture of forgiveness, because I've been forgiven for all the things that I've done from a sin nature. So I will quite often screw up some of the things that I do because I'm not perfect. But I recognize too, you know, that there's like Stephen Covey wrote about, you know, hey, there's emotional bank accounts. Sometimes we're going to make deposits. Sometimes we're going to write checks and withdraw. Sometimes those accounts are going to get to a very, very low balance, and they might even be overdrawn sometimes. But I do know also where I guess I'm a bit more empathic. I know I've written checks with people too. And there's been some times where I've overdrawn balances. So I do my best. And again, I don't do this perfectly, so don't get that impression, because I'm not. But I don't want to go into relationships that I know people knowingly have hurt me and broken me down and done things even maliciously. If you know, because I know I've done the same thing. So I want to love well to all, and I want to serve well. And that's, you know, I even have this tattooed on my arm as my own personal mission statement. It's my own personal lighthouse to love well, learn well, and serve well. Because I will screw things up all the time, but it causes me to look back into what's important. Because there's been so many people that have poured into my life to where I get to do the things I get to do. But if I stay just in my own lane, in my own world, and think just about just myself, then, you know, that gets to be lonely. And that's really what I hope to not experience and hope to push out into the world either.
Jamila, what are your thoughts around that? I loved your response, Jeff, but I'll respond afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think it's in knowing ourselves in our entirety. that plays a huge role in how we respond to other people. Because if we become so self-aware of every aspect of who we are, of whether we judge, of whether we forgive, of whether we love, and I'm talking about this, all of this towards ourselves, only then are we able to pass that on to someone else with grace and with gratitude. And we speak about this week after week after week, Anissa, is that when we find ourselves in a position where we can't forgive, it's normally coming from an egoic space also, because we feel that we're too good enough. So how can this person do that to us? I won't ever forgive them. But we have that within ourselves to write those checks, to be overdrawn and stuff like that, and we should be able to forgive ourselves for it. And in enabling ourselves to do that, we are then able to extend that privilege to someone else. And that's how I look at life now, Anissa, is that I always bring it back to myself and ask myself the question, how would I react if it were me, if that person were me? And that's been my guiding light. And that's been something that's really helped me, is to always bring it within and ask myself, how would I feel if this were me?
Jeff and Jamila, it's interesting that both your responses deeply resonates for me from this perspective, because when we're in judgment, we can't be in empathy simultaneously.
That's right.
When we're in that hyper-rational state or hyper-vigilant state, where we're looking to the environment and who's out to get me, we're not going to be able to come from that compassionate space. What's interesting also that came up in a conversation this morning, the same gentleman, around that question that I asked Jeff, was, so we are quick to label others, whether we say they are narcissistic, but yet that's the mirror reflecting right back us at us. Because if we want to vibrate at a frequency of love, unconditional acceptance, non-attachment, less ego, because ego is never going to go away. It's part of us, and it's there to serve us as a reminder. So earlier on in the conversation, Jeff, you spoke about how do we integrate all these parts of ourselves, because if we're going to shame them, we're going to shame it in others. Because what we judge in ourselves, we are judging and shaming in others, and we're going to show up with that disgust, and that emotional bank account is, as you so beautifully articulated, and I'm going to steal it.
Please do.
Because I think it's, how much am I giving, or how much am I withdrawing? And I love that, because how mindful am I in how I'm showing up with my own wounds, my traumas, my projections? Because until I deal with that, I'm always going to be in the judgment and egoic state. Until I see the triggers as, hey, here's a catalyst for me to see what is actually going on with me. This person is a gift. We're not going to evolve to that next level of consciousness. So what for you in the last few minutes that we have, I mean, what was that driving shift for you, where the light came on, where that aha moment, where you went into the abyss of this hero's journey and you came out and you realized afterwards, okay, that was necessary? What was that experience?
Yeah. So we all have our own cognitive biases. We all, when somebody walks into a room, we have just different thoughts that we think about that person. I mean, I'm a bald guy, and and for as crazy as that is, people automatically think, well, I wonder, and it's not bad or good, but it's just these things that people think about. I have glasses, so there might be an issue with his eyes, and so that it's a normal thing. But I'll also let you know, I'm unapologetically, I'm a believer, and for me, and like I said, on my arm, I tattooed "Love Well," and we're called to love well, because if I knowingly put up fences, and if I'm knowingly putting up obstacles, and because I don't understand a person, that's not doing what we're called to do. I had a conversation with somebody. I was in a conference this past May, and they were talking about something that I didn't necessarily understand so much, or maybe even agree with. But I was like, I want to understand this point of view from you, and I'm doing this because I just want to understand you, because I want you to feel heard, I want you to feel valued, and I want you to feel loved. I might not, and so much nowadays, and I know we're coming to an end, but just because we don't understand somebody or disagree with somebody doesn't mean we shouldn't love them. And that's unfortunately what's happening right now in society, at least in the States for sure. And that breaks my heart. So I want people to feel heard, so they can feel valued and feel loved, so they can be able to, contribute to society and have that ripple effect for themselves. So that's really where my heart posture comes from, is I want people to feel valued and loved.
That's beautiful. It's that sense of belonging, and
Yes.
that you are worthy and you are good enough, and that
Yes.
you are accepted, flaws and all, imperfectly perfect. And I love
Yes.
that, because that's really why we have called the segment Shifting from That Grudge State into Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. And for me, I'm really grateful for being able to even join this last 30 minutes with you. And it's been really enlightening to listen to you, to see your relentless pursuit of wanting to serve, and doing so from a place of paying it forward. So it's not about talking the talk, because we can intellectualize as much as we want, but it's about putting it into practice and actually doing it. So thank you for showing up here today. I know it's very early from where you are. We are now on 4:30 p.m. on our side. Anything, Jamila, you want to say in closing before we leave the last word to Jeff?
No, just to say thank you so much, Jeff. Like I said earlier on, for taking the time and this early morning, for dedicating it to us, this hour with us, and sharing your knowledge and wisdom and experience, and being so vulnerable with us. It certainly is something that we will take with us, we'll keep with us, and learn going forward into our, into every new experience that we feel. And just as Anissa said, thank you so much for paying it forward, for sharing the books that you've written. I'm so looking forward to diving into that. And Anissa, I was just telling Jeff earlier, what a lovely topic, on still marinating. And then the other side of the coin, such beautiful choice of topics. But thank you so much, Jeff, for being with us, like I said, sharing, and we do hope that you will join us again sometime in the new year.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I hope everyone has a great new year, and we start the year off strong.
Absolutely. Jeff, please do stay on. We normally have a short debrief afterwards.
Sure.
But thank you for our usual followers that join us. Those that watch the replay, it looks like a lot of people are watching the replay and coming back and thanking us for the segment. It's been more than 1 year that we've been live, so very grateful to be enlightened by so many powerful, insightful guests that we've had on. So Happy New Year to those that won't come on next week, but we hope that you stay safe and stay empowered and stay authentic, and just allow yourself to be vulnerable. From my side, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to end the live now, and we'll see you again next week. Don't forget, Jeff, do stay on.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.